discussing it in yesterday's special session. It's interesting that the county basically made a mistake, and then it's not just schools, but any agency that's taxing people and based upon their valuation of their homes or property is now in the sticky wicket of, okay, how do we right this wrong when we were informed that you can spend X amount, you have this much money.
And when you look at it, I mean, the town of Queen Creek itself is $400,000, which is peanuts compared to some of our neighbors, which are looking at I think, what is it, Chandler is $2 million maybe?
Well, I don't know about the town. I thought Chandler's school district was something like $34 million.
Let me see.
I thought I read that in the paper the other day.
I just wrote a story and I was looking at it. Higley is $3.4 million. Gilbert is $5.4 million. Let me double check Chandler. I have the list up here from the treasurer's office. Okay, and this affects lighting districts, and I mean it's just a mess.
Yeah. During our meeting, I was like, well, if I have a business, granted, not that the government ever runs anything like a business, but you have business insurance, errors and omissions, all that type of stuff. So if you do make a mistake, you're covered. And sadly, we don't have anything. One of the interesting things I was hearing from our CFO and the staff that was there at the meeting is it seems like the resolution and what's going on is changing day to day. I guess the county's planning on trying to pay this all back, or I don't know if it's payment or credit on this year's taxes or what, but in 1 year. They were talking about that if they were going to, I guess on the tax bills, that if it was to be acquired, I think it's 0.07%, that it be listed out in a manner so that it wasn't saying essentially, hey, this is for education and this is for the county's mistake. But how they're actually resolving it is yet to be completely defined or explained to us yet.
Well, I talked to someone from Queen Creek, and they told me the town is going to be deducting from their monthly distribution from the county of taxes. So that's how they're going to pay it over the next fiscal year. Or I should say the upcoming fiscal year.
And that's the city, right?
That's a town.
Not the school district.
No, not the school district.
Oh, it was the school district?
No, it wasn't the school district.
Oh, it was? Okay. Because the school district, I think it comes out to be about $1.4 million.
Yeah.
That we were over. Now, it's a lot, but it's, in the grand scheme of things, it's not, I don't want to make it sound like it's not a lot of money, but it's not as bad as some of the other districts that are impacted.
I know Chandler's $13.8 million. Paradise Valley is $14 million. Scottsdale is $27.5 million. Those are the school districts.
Yeah, huge dollars.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're in a district that's not growing, so like our district's growing, so probably what we would have to pay back is, easily mitigated or washed out by just the growth alone in students that will receive this year. So I think it's estimated that we're going to have a growth around 450 students just in this year alone. If you look at, say, that each one's bringing in roughly $5,700 on the state alone, so the actual overall impact would basically mean that we would probably end up having slightly less money to spend per student coming in. But again, I don't know how they're going to resolve it. It was really an interesting discussion for them to inform us exactly what's going on, and they kept saying every day there's new information on the county's website about it. So that's about what I know. Now, did you have any specific questions?
Yeah, looking at the budget override, if it passes, that could also make up some of it, couldn't it?
Well, no.
Oh, that would be status quo. I'm sorry. You're right.
Well, no, it wouldn't be status quo. I mean, technically it would, but the whole reason why I'm supporting this override is they wanted to have the status quo. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, if you passed this in 2015, assessment scores were in the 70th percentile, which basically means 70% of the kids were exceeding the core requirements. Okay? Mm-hmm. There's some misunderstanding, I think, in the public, and even me when I stepped into this role, of what that really was saying. But anyway, then it dropped down into the 60s in 2019 when they renewed it. Now we're in the 50 percentile. So I'm like, here you sold this saying that you're going to have a smaller class size, it's going to improve the quality of education, and if anything, it's done the exact opposite. So there's no way I was going to support the status quo. Mm-hmm. The only thing with status quo is the same percentile. So what they're actually doing this time is they're dropping a lot of what it was going to be used for. And when I challenged them to reimagine education, I said, I think we need to focus on K through third to ensure that by the time they're out of third grade, they have a solid understanding and love for education, which to me means that they're good at reading and arithmetic, so they're not continuing being challenged, where they weren't doing anything until about the 7th and 8th grade unless someone was severely behind. And of course, we need to end social moving kids along socially from grade to grade just because it looks bad. But anyway, the point that I was getting at, so they're going to double up the teachers. So they're going to have a teacher assistant in every class, K through third. So they'll have basically take it down to 1 to 13% ratio. So with this assistant teacher in the classroom, they can focus on those kids that are getting behind or those that need a little bit more because they're advanced. Mm-hmm. I think that will really help with the quality of education and capture that love for education. The other thing they're going to do is they currently have people in there following the data of where kids are. They're going to be reassessing students on every 6 months and doing an early intervention. So if they see a student that's going to start to fall behind, they're going to put them in and get them some help. And they have a program that they're building out or expanding for that. They're also going to be offering some math options. Mm-hmm. So currently a big gap, and I find this kind of humorous, is they say, yeah, we have a big problem with students as they go into Algebra 1. So the 7th and 8th grade, they kind of start to fall behind, and it's because, according to them, they're not really that mature, but yet they're sticking in these high school environments. So mm-hmm. that's kind of a contradictory to me. But nonetheless, they're going to be requiring that kids that are falling behind at that, either they attend one of the summer math catch-ups, or recommending doing a pre-algebra course in math strength in the year before they go into Algebra 1, or taking a zero class of math remediation so that they're kind of getting lifted up as they're going into the high school age. So we're really focusing this money going towards quality of education, which should result in assessment scores being raised. So let's face it, I think too often people sit here and say, oh, that'd be great but our responsibility is it bettering the education process? Is it bettering our students, or is it just a nice thing for whatever reason to have? We need to get back to more of, is it producing a better educated student?
Mm-hmm. And I understand the money is also going to security measures for schools.
It was reduced.
Okay.
The amount of security, it was reduced. They are getting rid of some of the special reading teachers because they had a lot in reading that wasn't really necessarily producing what, when I threw out the suggestion, we started talking about it, it wasn't really seeming to produce a lot. And honestly, the way that they had their plan set up of how if the override doesn't pass, I was trying to be professional in my irateness about it, but it was like they were trying to make everything as painful as possible on the student first before they started cutting some of the supporting staff and other positions. Mm-hmm. They have, administrative positions that was covered by it. And, I think if you're asking the taxpayer to pay more, then they should be able to have some measurable results. So every dime of that should go to benefit the overall education process. So they were paying for 50% of the AP classes. Mm-hmm. So a parent would have to pay 50% of paying 50%, and the testing for it. It's going to be completely on the parent now. Oh. We were the only. Now, not everyone participates in that, so doing stuff like that doesn't benefit the overall education process in total. They were using the money for secondary coaches, so you had your primary varsity football coach, for example, but they might have 5 or 6 other coaches. They're using it to pay for those coaches. Well, that doesn't benefit the entire education process. So they're hoping that will get picked up by some of these booster clubs and stuff, but I really tried to drive in the discussion that if we're going to ask the taxpayer to pay more, then it should be something that they can measure the results, and it benefits everyone within the education system, which is, I think, a fair thing. I think it's a big reason why in the future passing normal bonds is going to always be a challenge because, right now we're at about a 50% capture rate of students in our districts. That means 50% of the students choose other options in the public system. And then we have about 25%, 24%, 25% out-of-district students come in. So you're asking the taxpayer to pay for a bond to build schools that less than half or about half the students use, and then 25% of your enrollment doesn't contribute at all. It's a failing model in my mind, unless they really see the value of that public education. And I think if we did see the value, then our enrollment would go up. We'd have a much higher capture rate.
I suppose also it's easier to justify having smaller class sizes with more teachers than having more coaches.
It is, and when you have people like me that keep pushing on this, 50%, 53 and 55% assessment scores are not good, and I keep hearing stuff like, well, they've changed the test. I don't care if they changed the test. We're all being taken the same test. And then I keep hearing stuff like, well, we are, we're much better than state average. Well, yeah, but that's pretty pathetic, state average. I'd much rather be a district where we're 70, God, even 80%, when we can be the shining light and show this is what we've done and what's worked for us. We supposedly have all these great resources, then let us be the example of what works and kind of lead our other, sister education districts, into raising the scores.
Now I'm curious, looking at the budget, the maintenance and operation, the before the unrestricted capital and the federal projects, it's $115 million, about $3 million or more so than the previous fiscal year. Is that something that you support?
The budget, the M&O budget,
Uh-huh.
the one we just voted on, I thought it was 97 million.
Okay. Was it the one that you voted on yesterday?
Yes.
Because I'm
Let me pull it
looking.
up.
Okay.
Documents, QC, school board, board meetings, 2004, June special session. There you go. And 25 expenditure budget. Let me get it down here. Total aggregate, I'm sorry, I was looking at something else. Total aggregate is 142 budget limit. I mean, when it comes to the budget, I'd love to see us figure out how we can spend less and do more.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love for us to be able to give more to the teachers. I don't know if you're aware of it, but we keep losing staff. Teachers. This year, I think we're just administrators of principals on up. We've lost 11 just this year alone. That's huge. I think we're somewhere in the neighborhood of like 35% of our teachers have left, so we have a huge population of new teachers.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a couple things that are causing that in my mind. Money is a small portion of it, but when you're giving the teachers a 1-2% increase, but you're giving your superintendent an 18% increase, I think that really says something to where you value your resources. I think we would keep teachers. They'd be happier if they were making a little bit more. And it's not like, I don't think teachers go into it for, no one enters education to become rich.
Mm-hmm. Or journalism.
Yeah, in journalism, yeah. It's funny you say that because I was in journalism in high school, and I built an ad program that we made so much money that it paid for the entire journalism class to go to Disney World as a big prize for,
Nice.
It's kind of cool. But I decided pretty quick, as much as I like journalism, I also found out I was dysgraphic and dyslexic shortly afterwards. That, I wanted to do something where I made a little bit more money. Nonetheless, you talk to any teacher that's willing to talk, as long as their name's not mentioned. We have a real hostile environment, and we need to make it more. We need to support the resources that teach our students far better. There's no reason that they shouldn't be happy here. I've had multiple newer teachers tell me, all kinds of stuff, but they never want to go on the record because they're afraid of the retaliation. And, we should have a no bully policy, no retaliation. Is how do you make yourself better, as a district, as an employer, if you're not willing to listen to the hard question, the hard stuff, and make changes. We have a lot of turnover there.
Unfortunately, it's a dysfunctional corporate model where the chairman, the CEOs, they get big salaries, and the employees, it doesn't trickle down to them or to the to the consumer.
Exactly. Yeah. I know that raises a superintendent gets is not as often looking at the overall package as the raises teachers get, but if you're getting a 2% raise across the board, up and down, then how can you justify some of these huge increases at contract renegotiation? And we're not a big district like Mesa, where the current salary that our superintendent is getting might be more justified. Yes, we're growing, but we're not there. And I think you need to prove success in the district, aka higher assessment scores. But one of the things I keep hearing from teachers is we need curriculum, we need lesson plans. These brand new teachers, imagine you're a teacher and you were just hired. It's your first class. You walk in, there's 30 kids there, or more in some cases, and you're not handed a book necessarily to teach at. If you're Spanish or math, we have curriculum, but it's optional. Mm-hmm. So now you have the decision of what am I going to teach them? How am I going to present it? And I'm making my own. You've got to make your own lesson plans, handouts, the whole bit. As a new teacher, you'd be far more successful, or I think we'd be setting our teachers up for more success if we handed them curriculum. Here's the book you're going to use for this, or here's one of two books you can choose. Here's some lesson plans, and you could group these teachers together to create units and lesson plans together. So now you have consistency in what's being delivered, which you can measure the success of that, which results in assessment scores. If everyone's being taught the same thing, or pretty close to the same thing, you can say, okay, they're all being taught Envision math. How is our math scores doing? Are they going up? Are they at an acceptable level? But if you're